want to join us. So if you're catching this live right now, this video, come on in. If you're getting the recording, stand by because we're going to be coming at you with some good stuff in just a bit. As soon as we know it's broadcasting there. And I think we're in good shape there. There we are. Yeah, it's looking good. Looking good.
I see us.
Yeah, do you see us on there?
I see us.
Okay, there we go. I see you. I see me. There we are, just like that. All righty, here we go. All right. Hi there. This is Terry Brock, and I am always looking for ways that I can help you. At Agorapreneurs, we believe in a free market. We believe in doing things voluntarily and being an entrepreneur. That means you can get out there and be with other people. And there's a very important part of that, and that is being a good person. Now, we might think, well, duh, of course you want to be a good person. You want to be a nice person. Be kind to people. And being kind is there. We don't see that a lot. But there's something I ran across a little while ago, a book that kind of takes a different twist on it. I want to share that with you here. It's a graphic that I've got. It's from a friend of mine, Marc Ensign. He's got a book called Be a Dick. Notice how don't is scratched out there. How one person can change the world in a most unexpected way. Well, that is kind of interesting when you take a look at it and think about it. And to find out about that, I've got a special treat for you now because we've got Marc himself joining us right now. And Marc is joining us from his offices here in Florida as well. Marc, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Terry. I really appreciate it.
Well, I love your book. I've read it. I read it twice and saw that it's just packed with all kinds of good things. But people are looking at it going, wait a minute. We've heard you shouldn't be. Don't be a dick is a common kind of a cursory way or a crass way of saying, okay, don't act up, don't make people bad. But you're saying to be a dick. Now, of course, I've read your book. I know what you mean. Tell us a little bit about what's behind that title.
Sure. So as the story goes, and we'll I'm sure over the course of our talk today, we'll get into the majority of the story. But as the story goes, I was going through a difficult time in my life, and decided to kind of run away a little bit. I was living up in New Jersey, had this idea that I was going to change the world, like as we all have that as kids, and I just kind of never outgrew it. And then I woke up and I was 40 years old, and I really couldn't point to anything major that I had done that would really turn the world upside down. And
a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, and so I so I found myself moving. I picked up everything, convinced my family to sell everything they own and move away from friends and family, and we ended up in Tampa, Florida, sight unseen. We rented a place online. And when I got to Florida, it really hit me, this overwhelming feeling of what have I done? Like, I've made some stupid decisions before, but this certainly had to take the cake because there's no way to undo it. I'm stuck. I'm here. And so I drove my wife a little crazy. She asked me to go take a walk and kind of walk it off because I was driving her a little nuts. And I started walking around the neighborhood with my kids, and I ran into my neighbor Dick, who lives about 8 houses down the street from me. And he's one of the most extraordinary people I've ever met. And over the course of the next 2 years, he became a good friend, a mentor, and somebody that I've just really looked up to and modeled in many ways. And that's what the book is about. The book is about all of these different principles that I learned by being friends with this guy that lives down the street from me.
Yeah, one would say you lucked out being near him and being there, because I looked at your book, as I said, reading it. And if we look at just even the table of contents, it blew me away. Look at that. For instance, here are admonitions on what to do. These are the chapters that when you get the book, you'll see this. I'm talking to you watching this right now. Be kind, be helpful, be humble, be compassionate. And of course, those are the kind of things we could make a case to use that to teach children, but also to do that ourselves. But within each one, Marc, you write your book in such a wonderfully creative way. It's fun. It's funny. The way you use language and manipulate it in wonderful ways to help us and to help get the point across, I think is great. How did you come up with those concepts, those wonderful concepts that you talk about with rich examples and wonderful ways of how that's working?
So the interesting thing for me was like I said, as I grew up, I still had this need to change the world. And my thought, and I think a lot of people think this way, is that, the way that you change the world is by building a orphanage in the Dominican Republic, or walking across the country and raising money for a cause, or all these really grandiose things. Like, if you're going to change the world, it's got to be something so big and so impossible that the majority of us don't stand a chance on figuring out how to do that. We have
Yeah, it
families,
seems
we have
rather
jobs,
daunting to
everything
do
else.
all that stuff.
Right. And so I walked into it with that, where it just felt like it was impossible. And then when I met Dick, I started, I had all these experiences with him where I was coming at it from a very bad, dark place. And this guy was changing my life just by these little things, like this stuff that really should be foundational elements of who we are as human beings. Being kind. Like, it's, we're all taught to be kind. It's, as we're growing up, and then it just becomes secondary, and it just doesn't really, we lose sight of it because we're busy, or we're, whatever. Be humble, be helpful, thoughtful, generous, forgiving. Like, all of these different principles are stuff. These are things that we all have access to. They
Yeah.
don't cost anything. We don't need a step-by-step instructional manual. You don't need to take a course. You don't need to go to college for it. Like, we're born with this, and so, as you start to implement it, you start to realize, like, wow, like, I really, I'm doing these little things, and I'm making this big difference. Like, it really is the little things that matter.
Yeah, I think so. That's a beautiful way that you do it. And then I love the fact that in each chapter we see something and then you go into it. Matter of fact, let me just share one here that you had I thought was really, really helpful. You saw that nice is easy. Dick demonstrated how to be nice. You say, but Dick wasn't nice. He was kind. You responded, as you say there in the book, and you make a difference. I go, oh, yeah, you had me stepping back going, yeah, nice versus kind. Tell us what you talk about in the book and what that means to you.
So, my version, like, I think inherently we're all nice. I think people, like, of course there are always exceptions to the rule, but like, it's when you're walking down the street and somebody's walking the opposite direction, we'll all, kind of do the cool guy nod, or smile, or
Yeah,
wave, or just, acknowledge to some degree, and
yeah,
that's nice. That's the nice thing to do. What Dick did when I first met him was, I was with my kids, and he stopped and he bent down to get eye level with my kids, and he just started talking to them, and really just more so than even talking to them, listening to them. My kids had gone through some pretty traumatic. Having moved down as well, and like, it never even occurred to me that they lost their friends. They were in a new place. They didn't know anybody. They were starting from scratch. In a couple of weeks, they were going to have to go to a new school. And I was so caught up in my own stuff that I just assumed that they were fine, that they were just gonna, that they had this. And but Dick was actually listening to them. He had kind of taken a moment to, like, really listen to them. Like, they're talking about American Girl dolls and Legos and stuff like that, but he's like it was as if they were giving him the nuclear codes. Like he was so
wow,
enthralled with what they had to say. That's
nice.
kind. That's being kind to somebody. That's, that idea
Yeah.
of just really genuinely listening and caring about what somebody has to say.
Mark, I really
Um,
appreciate you mentioning that because that's something I think we need more of in our world, particularly today. We're in
yeah.
the midst of what I call crazy world 2020, with everything going on, and particularly after an election, people are just like this. And being nice, that is different than being kind. In kind, we can go, yes, nice to see you. Okay. And we all know it's plastic. Now, come
Mhm.
on. But like Dick did, he got down on his knees. I could just see him as I read your book, and I could just see several times that Dick did that. He would get down, he'd talk to Bella and to Zach, and he
Yeah.
would be at their level, listening to them and go, that's interesting, being curious. That's something that, why don't you think we have as much of that as we need in our world?
I think because we're so caught up in ourselves and everything else that's going on in our lives. Like, and another example of that is when, at that same, conversation when we were heading back to our house, he had stopped me and he said, "Hey, before you go, I know you're just moving in, and I know the ceilings are a lot taller around here than they are in New Jersey. So when the time comes, if you're hanging pictures and stuff and you need a ladder, let me know because I have two. It's in my garage." And that was really profound to me because how many times are we, do we say to somebody, "Hey, let me know if you need anything"? and we don't mean it. Like, let me know if you need help moving,
But
and then
Dick
we
was real
hope and
specific
pray.
about it on something that's very practical. You see, and it also showed he knew because he remembered, hey, you're from New Jersey. You
Right.
have this, you don't use the ladders as much. Hey, I've got two of them if you ever need it. He was really going out of his way to help you and to be there for you.
Right. And yeah, and it was it really like I think there's such a difference between, hey, if you need a ladder, let me know I have two, and let me know if you need anything. Let me know if you need anything is just an empty phrase of, boy, I hope you don't say yes that you need help. I hope you don't take me up on this because I don't have time, but I also don't want to look like a jerk. So let me know if you need anything, as opposed to, like, when you give a specific example like that, it feels like, okay, like you have now just opened the door, like you actually mean it. Like like you're ready to. I mean, if had I said, you know what, I really do need a ladder, he would have dragged it over to my house that moment. And in fact, we ended up needing to borrow his ladder a couple times.
That's
Um,
interesting. But I like the way you say that, Mark, because you say, and I think for those of you that are watching this, think about what Mark just said. Find something specific, not just, hey, if I can help you, but it's like, do you need a ladder? Or you find out about them, find out something there and reach out. It seems like Dick did that a lot. Do you
yeah.
see that happening a lot in many other cases?
Um, yeah, well, I think that it's been a tough year.
Yeah.
However, I think when COVID first happened, I felt like a lot of people were stepping up and doing that, doing like, what can I do? How can I help? And then as it became more and more polarizing and political, and now, do you wear a mask? Do you not wear a mask? Shut the economy down. Don't shut the economy down. And it became a very polarizing subject. We got less and less of that because again, we went back to our safe place, and didn't want to argue about anything. So it's not gonna, like I'm gonna stay on my team, you stay on your team. Whereas, but in the beginning, I felt like a lot of people really did step up and open their doors, open their hearts to serve
Mhm.
however they could.
Yeah, I think so. Let's take another little portion of the book here and take a look at that. I love your book. Really, really good here. When you said we've all been in a situation where we weren't getting what we needed from a grumpy waitress or a rude driver, so we jumped to conclusions and poor judgment on who we believe them to be, define the entire experience by this one short-lived experience that we have shared with them. I think that's so important that you talk about in there how we've got to go beyond that to realize, hey, they might be having a bad day. We don't know what's happened to them. Tell us a little bit more about what Dick did in that situation and the lessons you think are applicable to us because of it.
Sure. So this was when I learned about being compassionate. That was the principle: be compassionate. And we were over his house. We had only known him for a couple of days, and my wife was actually it was, I think, the second time she had ever even been there, and it was the first time my kids had been there, although they met him out in the street. And he my son at the time was 5, and my son was notorious for breaking things, like as most 5-year-old boys do. Like that was just his deal. And but we're in a new place, and so my wife and I are like really aggressively on his case, like, don't move, stand here, don't look at anything, just to, stand in the corner, face the corner until we're ready to leave, because we don't want him to break anything. And like, this is an older couple, they don't have kids in the house anymore, so everything is
Mhm.
made out of butterfly wings, and it's incredibly fragile. And so he jumped right in, like Dick jumped right in, and again, bent down to his level and just said, hey, we're friends, right? And Zach's like, yeah. He's like, then you wouldn't want to break anything of mine, would you? Like, really just got the fact that this kid is in a strange place, in some strange guy's house. There are no kids around. He just wanted to go out for ice cream, or or play or something. And he's getting yelled at, or not yelled at, but like reprimanded for something he didn't do. because we were nervous about what might happen. And it's that same thing, like when you go to that restaurant and the waitress it's at the end of a long day, maybe it's their second shift, and they're upset or having a hard time or just stressed out like everybody else. And then you see those people that like will leave no tip and then post it on Facebook as if it's a badge of honor that you taught that person a lesson, as opposed to taking the opposite route of being compassionate and being like, wow, I wonder what they're going through, that this is how they're responding, or what they're, how they're showing up, and actually taking that into account. And it's
Yep.
something so easy and so stupid, but it's so meaningful, not just for them, but also for you. So you're driving down the highway, and somebody cuts you off and you flip them off, and now you have this negativity in your space, versus like, what if that person was rushing to the hospital because they got a call that their wife was got in an accident, and here you are flipping them off, and now taking on this negative thing, this ugly thing, and because you're mad at the way, as opposed to just kind of giving that benefit of the doubt and being a little more compassionate to people.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best parts of your book. You've packed it full of all kinds of examples like that. One thing, though, that you did is you also started sharing yourself about what you're doing on your blog, where you shared the kind of things that are there. You mentioned this in the book, where you're going to be on there, where you say, from now on, I'm going to be a dick to everyone. And that's a dick with a capital D, referring to your neighbor, Dick. I loved it. And you got some really good response here, even from some famous celebrities. We see there in the lower part of that second section there, a guy named Will Wheaton. Tell us a little bit about what you wrote on your site there, and why people like Will Wheaton and many others responded in such a favorable way.
So I had a marketing blog at the time, and it was a marketing blog that had taken like I tried doing SEO, and I tried talking about social media, and I tried talking about marketing, and like nobody read the blog. I mean, I don't even, I think my wife stopped reading it after the third or fourth post. So I had no following, nobody paid attention to it, and this whole thing, I'm a month or two into this mentorship relationship, and learning so much, and it's changing my life, and I want to share it with people. And this was the moment that I was like, all right, you know what, I'm going to start showing up for people the way that this guy showed up for me over the past month or two. And one way for me to do that is like, I'm going to share this story. Like, I'm a storyteller. That's what I like to do. And it was the first time I wrote a blog post that was really very story oriented, and it wasn't tactical, and it wasn't marketing related. It was just, here's what I want to do. Here's how I want to show up in the world for other people. And it was specific to people online. And I posted the blog post, went to bed, woke up the next morning, and it was like going gangbusters. My server had shut down a couple of times. And as it ends up, somebody that I was connected to on Twitter, who I'm still connected to, we actually were laughing about this the other day. He shared it and tagged Will Wheaton on it, because Will Wheaton has a saying, "Don't be a dick." And so he shared it with Will Wheaton, who then shared it with his community and said, "This is the one time it's okay to be a dick." And as a result of
That's
that,
great.
I got a ton of traffic, and a lot of attention, and people really kind of gravitated towards this message. It was really I was very humbling to be on the receiving end of like this viral post, but it was for the right reasons. Like, it was a good viral post. It wasn't because like, it wasn't a weird cat video or anything else. It was like, I actually dumped my feelings into this thing, and people actually read it versus all my other posts.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. We're talking now about what you can do to be a dick. And we're talking about dick with a capital D there, a person who we admire and has so many of those traits. Marc Ensign's the author of the book, and he has shared a lot with us on this. Marc, if someone says, hey, I want to get some more information about that, how can they get the book? How can they find out more about you and what you do, and what it's like to be a dick in the best sense of that, as in your neighbor, Dick?
Sure. So the main website for the book, and where we have pictures, and I'm starting to collect a lot of stories. A lot of people are sharing stories as well. And we're going to be adding all the stories to the website as they come in. But that website is iwanttobeadick.com.
All right, matter of fact,
And
here, let me just try I'm using Restream here, and
ah,
we want to use that. I want to be a dick.com, all with no spaces in there. Is that right?
that is
There we
correct,
are.
sir.
Okay, and let's see. I want to be a dick. We're going to show that. Hold on a minute. I'm using this. There we go. That should be it right there. I want
Perfect.
to be a dick.com. Is that correct?
That is correct. And so I've been getting a lot of stories, and I think one of my favorite moments was I got the book, and one of the first things I did the first thing I did, I brought it to Dick's house and I gave him a copy of it, him and his wife. But then I sent one to my parents, and so my dad who's going through stage 4 cancer, stage 4 bone cancer right now. He was at the doctor's office, and he was reading the book, and he puts it down for a second, looks up, and there's an older woman there that's having a hard time getting out of her seat and to her walker. And so now he's got cancer in his hip, and so he's not walking so good. He got up, and he hobbled over to her walker, brought it over to her, and helped her up out of the chair, then sat back down. And when he sat back down, he realized, like, wow, I was just being a dick. And then he started, he kind of like it really hit him pretty hard, because, like, not that that's not who my dad is or anything along those lines, but he's that guy that is just kind of consumed in his world. And if asked, he would have helped, but if you don't ask, you're not going to get the help. And the fact that he voluntarily just got up and just did that without even realizing it is really what this book is about. Is it's those little things that make the big difference.
Yeah.
And he's told me since that he's like, I find myself just doing all these things every now and then, like, like I'll help somebody put their groceries in the trunk, or I've as I'm bringing my cart back to the cart station, I grab somebody else's cart also. It's those little things. And my mom, same thing. Like every, I have like dozens of stories over the past 3 days of people that just are excited about being a dick. Like, they've done these things that we're all meant to do. Like, this is not splitting the atom. I mean, being kind, helpful, humble, like, we're all born with that. But this is a nice, gentle reminder, and it's packaged up in a way that's fun, and it's memorable. And that's really what the book is about.
You've done a brilliant job with that, and I really appreciate it. And for those of you watching this, it's a book I would highly recommend. We need this book in our world today, to be kind to others, which in this case, we twist something around, and Mark says, be a dick with a capital D. Dick,
Right.
with his
That's
neighbor.
there's a big distinction between the capital D and the lower
Yeah,
the
that's right.
lowercase
There is
d.
that. I don't do the one with the lower D. Okay, we don't
Right.
want that. We want with the upper. But and in full disclosure, Mark and I have worked together, and I got to tell you, this guy behind the scenes is wonderful. You need to get to know
Thank you.
Mark. He helped me enormously. I'm glad to know him, not only working with him in business, but also as a friend. He's a man that has integrity, and I think maybe Dick, your neighbor, had something to do with some of that. Gave some ideas on it. Mark, we really appreciate you. Before we let you go, any
Yes.
final words you want to say as you look into the camera to that person that's watching this thinking, that's an interesting twist on be a dick? What words do you have for them as before we walk out the door and say goodnight?
I think I think most, if not all of us, have this need to do something that matters, and to make a difference, and to leave their stamp on the world, or however you want to word that. And what I learned from this book and this experience is that it is so attainable, that you don't have to walk halfway around the world and raise money for a cause, and build an orphanage. I mean, all that stuff is great, but if you're waiting for the time and the money to be able to do that, you can change the world right now, just by showing up a little differently.
I like it. Show up a little differently. And really, Mark, what you're talking about in the book is what we do, agorapreneurs. The idea of living our lives as entrepreneurs peacefully, with liberty-loving principles, and doing that. And I think Dick is probably an agorapreneur himself. Many people are in their heart, and Mark, you certainly are. Thanks so much for being with us today, Mark. We really
Thank you,
appreciate it,
Terry.
sir.
I
Okay.
appreciate you.
And for those of you joining us right now here on live, or if you're watching a recording of it, thank you. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and let us know. We'll be looking at those. And if we can help you out in the future, you know how to reach us. You can get in touch with Marc there at iwanttobeadick.com. You reach him that way. And for me, Terry at terrybrock.com. Good email for that. Thanks again. And Marc, any final words before I think you said the final, but I'm giving you a final
A
word.
final. Well, I mean, if I have to choose a final word, it's to encourage everybody out there to be a dick.
There we go. And now that we've been talking about it, we know what that means. Marc,
That's
thanks
right.
again. Bye now.